Mayor Tiffany Henyard's tenure in Dolton, Illinois has devolved into a storm of controversy, leaving the community, once hopeful for steady leadership, mired in scandal after scandal. One of the most glaring examples of her controversial leadership is the appointment of a police chief who shockingly lacked the legal qualifications to serve as a police officer. This oversight has come to symbolize the dysfunction that has defined her administration, raising serious questions about Henyard's ability to effectively lead the town since taking office. Henyard has faced mounting accusations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and political favoritism. Critics argue that her focus has been more on consolidating power than governing for the well-being of Dolton. Allegations have surfaced accusing her of embezzling taxpayer money, using township resources for personal gain, and making appointments based more on loyalty than competence or legality. The appointment of an unqualified police chief, particularly in a town where public safety is a significant concern, has only added to the growing frustration among residents. Delayed emergency responses and mismanaged resources have further undermined public trust, leaving many to question Henyard's ability to effectively govern despite mounting criticism. Henyard has offered little explanation for her actions, instead deflecting accusations by claiming they are politically motivated attacks designed to bring her down. However, these deflections have done little to comfort the residents of Dolton, who are grappling with crumbling infrastructure, rising crime rates, and a local government in disarray. Critics argue that Henyard's priorities seem to focus on consolidating power, rather than addressing the town's most pressing issues, such as stabilizing the economy or improving public safety. Allegations that she has used taxpayer funds for personal luxuries, such as lavish spending on hotels and travel, have only fueled suspicions that she views public office as a means of self-enrichment. The controversies surrounding Henyard have turned Dolton into a political spectacle, attracting media attention far beyond the town's borders. However, Henyard supporters argue that she is the victim of a smear campaign, claiming that as the first female mayor of Dolton, she is facing disproportionate scrutiny from political insiders unwilling to accept a shift in the town's power dynamics. Despite this narrative, Henyard supporters have failed to convince many residents, who are becoming increasingly frustrated with the dysfunction that has marked her administration. Henyard's combative leadership style, characterized by fiery speeches and public confrontations, has only deepened divisions within the community, leaving many questioning whether reconciliation and progress are even possible under her leadership. Adding to the growing concerns is the involvement of outside agencies, including the FBI, which is reportedly investigating Henyard's administration amid rumors of financial improprieties and abuse of power. If evidence of misconduct is uncovered, Henyard's legal troubles could deepen significantly, further damaging both her political career and the already struggling town of Dolton. With a population of just 20,000, the stakes are incredibly high. Residents are left wondering whether their local government can effectively serve their needs amid the turmoil. Henyard's story is one of the stark contrasts. A mayor who promised transformation but has become entangled in controversy, a town that once hoped for stability but now faces chaos, and a leadership dynamic teetering on the brink of collapse. As Dolton continues to make headlines for all the wrong reasons, the future remains uncertain. Will Henyard be able to rally her administration and deliver on the promises of reform and progress she made during her campaign, or will her controversial leadership spell the town's downfall? Promises that Henyard made when she first assumed office have now been overshadowed by a storm of controversy and scandal. With widespread distrust continuing to grow in Dolton, the town's residents have seen a public meeting between Henyard and the Dolton trustees for the first time in weeks. However, the controversial figure at the center of many of Dolton's current issues, Police Chief Ronald Burge, was notably absent from the meeting. Burge, handpicked by Henyard to lead the town's police department, has now been officially deemed inactive by the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board (ILETS) for failing to meet the state's basic requirements to wear a badge, carry a gun, or manage a police force. Despite this revelation, Henyard remains unwavering in her support for Burge, refusing to reconsider her decision to appoint him as police chief. This latest scandal has only added to the ongoing drama that has gripped Dolton, a small town now synonymous with dysfunction and controversy under Henyard's leadership. Henyard has faced criticism for pushing boundaries and ignoring governance protocols throughout her tenure, including allegations of misusing taxpayer money for lavish parties, using police officers as personal security, and even dressing in theatrical outfits reminiscent of gangster movies. Her leadership style has often been characterized by spectacle and drama, overshadowing the serious responsibilities of managing a town for the residents of Dolton. However, these antics are far from entertaining. The town is struggling with critical issues such as poverty, infrastructure decay, and rising crime rates, and the situation has only worsened under Henyard's leadership. The controversy surrounding Burge's appointment began in September when Henyard announced him as the new police chief. The move was met with immediate backlash from the Dolton Village Board of Trustees, who argued that the mayor did not have unilateral authority to make such an appointment without their formal approval. Despite these objections, Henyard pushed forward, bypassing the usual checks and balances designed to prevent such overreach. Critics viewed this as a blatant disregard for governance protocols, a recurring theme throughout her administration. What made the situation even more alarming was Burge's lack of qualifications. It was revealed that Burge did not meet the minimum requirements set by Illinois state law to serve as a police officer, let alone lead an entire department. According to state guidelines, police officers must complete rigorous training, maintain certifications, and remain in good standing with the ILETs. Burge's inactive status raised serious questions about his ability to lawfully and effectively perform his duties as police chief. This revelation heightened tensions between Henyard, the village board, and the growing number of frustrated residents. Despite the uproar, Henyard stood by her decision, defending Burge as the right person for the job and dismissing critics as politically motivated adversaries trying to undermine her authority. However, her defiance did little to quell concerns, and her actions were seen as emblematic of her disregard for both governance and public safety. Opponents of Henyard's decision argued that her insistence on keeping Burge in a role was not about leadership, but rather about consolidating political power by installing a loyal ally in such a critical position. Henyard could potentially use the police department to further her political agenda, something many viewed as a dangerous precedent for any elected official. The implications of this conflict extend far beyond Burge, and Henyard residents and local leaders feared that the dysfunction emanating from the mayor's office was eroding public trust in local government. With the town already grappling with financial instability, an underfunded school system, and deteriorating public services, Dolton could not afford to be further embroiled in a political circus. Adding to the tension was the fact that outside entities, including the Illinois Attorney General's office and the FBI, were reportedly monitoring Henyard's administration investigations into her financial dealings, alleged misuse of public funds, and other controversial actions continued to unfold further, damaging her credibility and leadership as Dolton struggles to recover from the fallout of Henyard's decisions. The future of the town and her political career remains uncertain. Many residents are wondering if they can ever restore trust and stability to the town. With her leadership under intense scrutiny, Henyard faces a pivotal moment. Can she steer Dolton back to stability, or will the scandal and dysfunction surrounding her administration result in her political downfall? The town's future remains in the balance, with residents left to grapple with the legacy of her controversial leadership. The controversy surrounding Ronald Burge's appointment as police chief in Dolton, Illinois, has become a stark example of how political decisions can spiral into public outrage and legal consequences. Handpicked by Mayor Tiffany Henyard, Burge was deemed unqualified to serve in the role when it was revealed that he had not met the necessary legal requirements to carry a weapon or serve as a law enforcement officer. His failure to complete the required paperwork and training and pass a mandatory requalification shooting exam since 2021 left him legally barred from performing the essential duties of a police officer. This revelation sent shockwaves through the town, raising serious concerns about both Burge's fitness to lead the department and Henyard's judgment in making such a critical appointment. Despite mounting backlash, Henyard refused to back down, continuing to defend Burge's appointment as a politically motivated attack against her leadership, dismissing critics as adversaries trying to undermine her authority. The controversy began when Henyard bypassed the village board of trustees to appoint Burge without their formal approval. This led to a legal battle in which a judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking Burge from serving as police chief until the board approved the decision. Nevertheless, Henyard remained determined to push forward with her agenda, resulting in a contentious and chaotic village board meeting. The court ultimately ruled that Burge could serve as interim police chief for 30 days while a permanent replacement was determined. However, this temporary victory was soon overshadowed by the revelation that Burge was unqualified for the role. Critics argued that Henyard's decision to appoint Burge was more about consolidating political power and loyalty than ensuring competent leadership for Dolton's police department. The growing controversy over the appointment, compounded by allegations of Henyard's misuse of public funds and political favoritism, further fueled the frustration in Dolton, where the community was already grappling with rising crime rates, deteriorating infrastructure, and a lack of public trust in local government. As Burge's lack of qualifications became public knowledge, even some of Henyard's staunchest supporters began to question her judgment, further polarizing the town. Henyard's refusal to accept responsibility for her actions, instead deflecting blame onto critics, only deepened the divide in Dolton, Leaving many to question her ability to lead effectively. The Burge controversy is just one chapter in the growing list of scandals surrounding Henyard's administration, which has raised concerns about transparency, governance, and the priorities of the mayor's office. With federal investigations into Henyard's financial dealings and misuse of public resources still ongoing, Dolton remains in a state of political turmoil, and the town's future remains uncertain. Public trust in Henyard's leadership is quickly eroding, and it is unclear whether her defiant stance will result in lasting change or further entrenched divisions within the town. As the fallout continues, Dolton's residents are left grappling with the consequences of a leadership that has become synonymous with controversy and dysfunction. The stakes have never been higher for Henyard, and the future of Dolton hangs in the balance the controversy surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard's appointment of Ronald Burge as police chief has raised serious concerns about her leadership style, decision-making, and priorities. Despite the revelation that Burge failed to maintain his training and certification under Illinois law, leaving him legally unqualified to serve as the head of the police department, Henyard has remained firm in her decision to retain him. This glaring issue has led many residents to question why Henyard is so determined to keep Burge in such an important role. Critics argue that the answer lies in Henyard's apparent pattern of prioritizing loyalty over competence when it comes to appointing key officials. A growing sentiment in Dolton suggests that Henyard makes her appointments not based on merit, but on the loyalty of those she appoints. One resident summed up this feeling with a blunt comparison, saying Henyard hires and recruits people like a mob boss. While harsh, this comment reflects a deep concern within the community that Henyard's leadership revolves around surrounding herself with loyal supporters rather than selecting the most qualified individuals for the job. Throughout her tenure, Henyard has made several controversial appointments, from hiring police officers with dubious histories to placing political allies in powerful roles. These decisions have led many to view her leadership style as one that values personal allegiance over professionalism, a stance that has significantly undermined trust in local government. Residents are increasingly questioning whether Henyard values political loyalty over the needs and safety of the community. While Henyard defenders may argue that her decisions are bold and unconventional, the growing public scrutiny surrounding her appointments, particularly the Burge controversy, highlights a troubling trend in her governance. This pattern of questionable decision-making has created a lack of transparency in her administration, with many residents wondering if their best interests are truly being served. However, the Burge controversy is not just about his lack of qualifications. Before being appointed by Henyard, Burge served as police chief in several neighboring towns, including Dixmoor and Harvey. His tenure was marked by multiple lawsuits and allegations of misconduct, including accusations of political retaliation and employment disputes. Burge had been named in at least 4 lawsuits in recent years, further tarnishing his record. Given this history, it is difficult for many to understand how Henyard could justify him as the right person for the job, especially when the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board had deemed him inactive, effectively barring him from legally serving as a police officer. Despite the growing frustration among Dolton's leadership and residents, Henyard has remained steadfast in her decision to keep Burge in place. Critics suggest that Henyard's insistence on retaining Burge is part of a larger strategy to consolidate her political power by surrounding herself with individuals who owe their positions to her. By securing their loyalty, Henyard ensures they are unlikely to challenge her authority. Some argue that this is not about finding a qualified leader for the police department, but about building a political alliance that serves her interests rather than the interests of the community. Another theory is that Henyard thrives on controversy and chaos. She has built a reputation as a mayor who welcomes drama and attention, from her attention-grabbing outfits during public meetings to her stirring conflicts with political opponents. Henyard seems to have embraced the spotlight, often at the expense of Dolton's residents. In this view, keeping Burge in place is simply another way for Henyard to keep the focus on herself and maintain control over the town's political landscape, regardless of the motivation. The situation surrounding Burge's appointment has left Dolton in a state of dysfunction, with mounting concerns about Henyard's leadership and the long-term effects of her decisions on the town's well-being. As public trust in her administration continues to erode, the future of Dolton hangs in the balance, and the town remains divided, uncertain of what lies ahead under Henry's leadership amid the growing controversy surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard's leadership in Dolton, Illinois. Residents are left grappling with an escalating sense of frustration and disillusionment. Henyard's approach to governance has been marked by controversy, particularly her unwavering support for Ronald Burge, who was appointed as police chief despite lacking the necessary qualifications to serve in the role. His appointment, which was met with immediate backlash, became further complicated when the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board revealed that Burge was not legally qualified to hold a position, urging Henyard to remove him from public service altogether until he completed the required training. However, Henyard has remained defiant, refusing to heed the board warning and continuing to stand by Burge's appointment. This defiance has sparked further conflict with the Board of Trustees, who are now preparing to take the matter back to court, using the board's letter as evidence to argue that Burge should not even be allowed to serve in an interim capacity. The situation in Dolton has become a perfect storm of mismanagement, with the town's finances in disarray, local businesses struggling, and a police department in chaos. Many residents have come to believe that Henyard is deliberately surrounding herself with individuals who owe their positions to her, ensuring their loyalty at the cost of competence and proper governance. One resident even compared Henyard's leadership to that of a dictator, citing the massive billboards featuring her face across the town, a self-promotional strategy that many see as emblematic of her administration's lack of focus on the town's real issues. For Henyard, it seems that keeping the public's attention on her, even through negative attention, is a small price to pay for maintaining control and advancing her political agenda. Yet, this approach has alienated many, with residents pointing to the town's deteriorating infrastructure, rising crime, and a sense of powerlessness in the face of a dysfunctional government. As the controversy surrounding Burge continues, Henyard's leadership style is being scrutinized more than ever, and questions are being raised about her motivations. Some argue that Henyard thrives on chaos and controversy, using distractions to keep the public's focus on her, while others believe that she is focused on consolidating political power by appointing loyalists who are unlikely to challenge her authority, regardless of the reasons behind her decisions. It is clear that Henyard's leadership has left Dolton in turmoil, and the situation shows no signs of improving anytime soon. With the next mayoral election approaching, Henyard's challenger, Trustee Jason House, has promised a campaign focused on accountability, reform, and transparency. House's messages resonated with many residents who are eager for a change in leadership, and his commitment to cleaning up the mess left by Henyard's administration could provide the town with a much-needed fresh start. Henyard, however, remains determined to hold on to power, announcing her re-election bid and even comparing herself to controversial former U.S. President Donald Trump, claiming she would win in a landslide. Whether Henyard can retain her position or face the consequences of her controversial decisions remains to be seen, but the upcoming election will undoubtedly be a pivotal moment for Dolton. The town's future hangs in the balance, with residents left questioning the role of loyalty in local politics and the dangers of appointing unqualified individuals to key positions of power. With Burge's future still uncertain and legal battles looming, it's clear that Dolton's leadership crisis is far from over, and the stakes for the town's future have never been higher.